Shortly starting. Welcome everyone to the UK Pavilion. Thank you very much for joining us today. It's Energy Day. We're full of energy here in the UK Pavilion as well. And I can see it's just ticked past midday. So I'm able to say good afternoon to you all as well. And thank you so much for joining us for this really exciting session on enabling a just energy transition in Africa through partnerships. And that ticks lots of boxes, doesn't it? We're going to be talking about just transitions, we're going to be talking about energy, we're going to be talking about Africa, and most importantly about partnerships as well. Because international support and partnerships are needed, they're necessary to enable a just and inclusive clean energy transition in Africa, which will expand energy access via least cost sustainable energy technologies to those who need it. At this session, we want to reflect on the progress made since COP26 and the commitments made there, and partnerships in Africa, including on innovation, policy, and of course, investments. And we've got 5 fantastic speakers for you here today from public, private, and finance sectors, who are each going to speak for a few minutes about how partnerships are working, their perspectives, what they are delivering, and then to discuss ways to take them to the next level. Following these interventions, hopefully we will have time for a few questions and reactions from the audience as well, so do have a think about that. And so, without further ado, it's my great pleasure to invite Graham Stewart, the UK Minister for Climate, to speak about UK support and partnerships towards a just and inclusive energy transition in Africa. Minister.
Well, thank you, Kate, and good afternoon. It's a great pleasure to be here on the UK Pavilion to talk about progress since Glasgow and the renewed ambition in our energy transition partnerships with Africa and African nations. The critical importance of affordable, reliable and secure energy supplies has rarely been clearer than it is today. And meeting our energy needs with widely distributed renewable resources is essential if we're going to stay on track for 1.5 degrees C, and has never been as possible as it is today. And nowhere is progress on the energy SDG 7 goal more needed than in Africa, where there is a huge opportunity, as Kenyan President Ruto recently put it, to leapfrog dirty energy and become a leader in clean energy, because there are just enormous resources in Africa, and it's about building and programming the rollout of that to the betterment and benefit of everyone in Africa. The UK is working in partnership to support a just and inclusive energy transition in Africa, driving technological innovation, informing effective energy policies, and investing in transformational projects. And to deliver this, the UK committed £11.6 billion of international climate finance to 2026, a doubling of commitment from the UK. On innovation, the UK's Ayrton Fund is providing up to £1 billion to support innovations enabling the clean energy transition in developing countries. This includes the £65.5 million Clean Energy Innovation Facility expansion, which was launched by my Prime Minister last week. And today I am delighted to announce the outcome of Energy Catalyst Round 9, which will award more than £26 million to 200 clean energy innovators working in 25 countries, including 16 in Africa. These innovators are pioneering solutions on everything from energy storage and green grids to hydrogen and clean cooking and more. Now, across Africa and beyond, an estimated 25 million petrol and diesel generators deliver expensive power with as much capacity as 1,000 coal-fired power plants. Today, I am proud to announce the launch of the Zero Emissions Generators, ZGen, initiative, to add to all the others you have to try and remember while working in this space. But the ZGen initiative, I think more memorable than many, in partnership with the IKEA Foundation. The UK is going to provide £15 million from our Glasgow commitment to the Transforming Energy Access platform to seed a wider £100 million innovation partnership which will accelerate zero-emission alternatives to these fossil fuel gen sets. We're also working closely with African governments on effective planning and policy for the energy transition, including regional system integration. And I'm delighted to share the stage today with the Honourable Minister from Zambia in recognition of our strong partnership on the country's Green Growth Compact signed at COP26, and our work together to analyse energy options to deliver on the clear ambitions they have set out for leapfrogging fossil fuels and powering up green growth. Multilateral partnerships are also essential, and we committed in Glasgow to support the Sustainable Renewables Risk Mitigation Initiative. That will partner with over 20 African countries to develop the auction frameworks needed to finance 2 gigawatts of new renewable electricity projects. And I know Gabriella will provide an update on this together with the World Bank's Energy Sector Management Assistance Programme shortly. The UK has committed up to £42 million through the Energy Sector Management Assistance Programme to provide vital technical assistance to emerging economies on the energy transition. And this includes support for South Africa's coal transition, preparing for the retirement and repurposing of 4 coal-powered power stations with 6 gigawatts of capacity and providing mitigation measures for workers and communities. I'm pleased to say we're also a major and growing investor in clean energy projects in Africa. I was remembering just now talking to the Minister that a few years ago, as a Trade Minister then, I helped organise the UK-Africa Investment Summit, which saw many billions generated and going into green technologies and investments in Africa. British International Investments has a long-standing portfolio in energy generation, transmission and distribution, including the largest independent power producer in Africa, and is expanding its clean energy portfolio further beyond commitments made in Glasgow, which Holger will discuss shortly. In this, I apologise for giving this long list of numbers, but in a sense it's trying to bring alive that it isn't just talk and rhetoric about action. There are real sums of money, real investments leading to real change and projects. And the UK has committed £88 million through the Renewable Energy Performance Platform, and that has so far supported 29 on and off-grid projects across 18 sub-Saharan African countries. And that programme has mobilised more than £300 million and enabled local developers to connect 1.2 million people to clean, affordable and reliable energy. And I know that Brian will talk more about the platform and the developer perspective later. UK Export Finance, that's our credit agency, can also support the energy transition in Africa, with existing projects including a £27 million loan to the government of Ghana to finance solar-powered water supply systems at more than 400 sites. And in the coming years, UKEF, UK Export Finance, has billions of pounds of capacity to support clean energy projects, sourcing just 20% required from the UK. Finally, the International Partners Group, chaired by the UK, has set out the details of the initial $8.5 billion funding package pledged at COP26 for the Just Energy Transition Partnership in South Africa. This package will support South Africa's wider investment plan for a just energy transition, recently released by President Ramaphosa, and the UK is providing $1.8 billion. There's so much more to say and so much more to do, but I will give the floor to the other speakers to talk about what's already been achieved and how we can take partnerships towards a just and inclusive energy transition in Africa up to the next level. There are a few more essential objectives if both climate and sustainable development goals are to be delivered, and I'm sure we're all gathered in this room because we're determined that they should. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister, and for setting up the rest of this conversation so well for us today. And so now I would very much like to welcome the Honourable Collins Ndlovu, the Zambian Minister for Green Economy and Environment, to speak about Zambia's commitment to a just energy transition and those partnerships as well. Thank you, Minister.
Right Honourable Graham Stewart, very pleased to meet you, sir. Very pleased to meet the rest of the panelists. It's always gratifying to speak at the UK Pavilion because of the strong partnerships Zambia has with the UK in all areas of development. So we thank you for your support. We thank you for the support to my country, Zambia. I think since time immemorial, we worked very, very closely. The topic at hand is really an important one. A few days back, I've been involved in a lot of meetings. As you may be aware, we are chairing the African group of negotiators to this COP. On one of the reports, obviously, IPCC clearly indicates we are headed in the wrong direction and that we are not doing enough to transition our economies to greener economies. And that, of course, we are leaving a lot of us behind. The next report was a finance report, which clearly shows that the financing is not flowing as fast as it should. I listened to Oxfam as well, they were spot on. What does this do to the continent, say, of Africa, which is least developed, which has to catch up, which is debt distressed? What does it do? It leaves everybody behind. A country like Zambia and the rest of the continent has unique characteristics of difficulties. Right now, there's a lot of hydropower development which has been developed. There's potential, a lot of it has been developed. But because of climate change, for example, in Zambia, we are more than 90% hydropower based. There's droughts there. And the droughts are leading to energy insecurity. And for us in Zambia, energy security, food security, and water security is a nexus which is very closely interlinked. Indeed, what will be the solution? And listening to the minister, I'm very, very glad to hear the numbers. I'm very, very excited to hear the numbers. And I'm also glad, Minister, for you to know that the Green Growth Compact coming from COP26 was a very, very welcome move. We really said to ourselves, how do we come together to manage the challenge of the time? One issue which came out very, very clearly from the finance report was the flaws, the difficulties in accessing this financing. Whilst the Green Growth Compact is a very, very brilliant idea, there's been very little traction on it. So we need to see action. Indeed, COP26 was for pledges. And indeed, we made a lot of pledges through the compact. It's an implementation COP. We want to see action, actionable items. There's also another issue which came up, again, in reference to our transition, the reformation of the MDBs. How do you help us reform them so that cheaper and pointed financing comes and starts flowing to us? Zambia is unique, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, and this is to the UK. It sits in the middle of a region which is power hungry, energy hungry, which is food hungry, which is water hungry. I'm sure we've made strides, Minister, to ensure that there's prudent utilization of our resources, that we are fighting corruption, that your money, and this is also to the private sector, that your money is safe, that we've de-risked a lot of those investments you want to put in, that we are ready to do partnerships with yourselves through PPPs. All this will speak to actualizing the energy transition. The science is clear, and I've not heard anybody from the scope arguing with the science. It's very, very clear. Respected scientists are spot on with where we are. Financial people are also very spot on where we are. We believe that through your leadership, Right Honorable, we are able to unlock the difficulties and start moving. Indeed, I'm here to tell you that Zambia is ready for business. Zambia is ready in the climate space to provide that necessary leadership. Indeed, another issue which will help us ensure that the energy transition is softer is the issue of loss and damage, which we believe and we are happy that you are supporting us with. What that does is that our losses each year, their losses because of climatic conditions, because of the negative effects of climate, we are taken back on our developmental agenda. Even in the energy sector, years forward are spent on rebuilding. It means we are not moving. So the adage that you don't leave anybody behind, actually you are not leaving us behind. You are flying away. You are so far away that catching up will be very difficult. Indeed, we are in this together. 1.5 degree will only be achievable if the global world acts together. If we are in it as well, if you increase your ambition. I'll say a few more comments as we go, and thank you for kind attention.
Well, thank you so much for those words, Minister, and for your leadership as well. I mean, globally, but also here at this COP, and absolutely this message of how we have to move, and we have to move together and leave no one behind, I think is critical to our discussions today. So now let us pass over to Gabriela Azuela, who is Practice Management at the World Bank for the Energy Sector Management Assistance Programme, which we more readily call ESMAP. Thank you, Gabriela.
Well, thank you. Very happy to be here with you today. As Kate just mentioned, I am the manager of the very famous ESMAP. I don't think we need to unpack the acronym. ESMAP is a multi-donor trust fund that's very focused on decarbonization of energy sector infrastructure and achieving universal access of energy. We have about 28, 29 technical programs in ESMAP, all clustered under these two important objectives that we have to support our client countries, developing economies, low and middle income countries, deliver on these two important objectives, the Paris Climate Stabilization Goals and SDG 7. And I have to say, one of the things that I think is very interesting about ESMAP is its team. We have a team of very passionate, bright professionals deployed in operations, supporting a wide range of different projects, and I am very proud to represent ESMAP. Let me First, also, before I talk about the program and tell you a little bit about some of the things that we are doing with support from the UK, I would like to, first of all, convey my gratitude to the UK government for the continued support to ESMAP over the years. It's been absolutely instrumental. The UK is one of our largest donors, both BASE and FCDO. And it's not only about the, let's say, financial contributions, it's also about the expertise that we get from our colleagues from these institutions, but overall from the UK. So thank you very much for being part and a partner of ESMAP. And as I said, we have many windows in ESMAP, many programs, and a large team operating under these programs. I like to talk about a few of them. Let me just see here in my list. I'm going to talk about the Sustainable Renewables Risk Mitigation Initiative that was mentioned before, our work in coal transition, and I'm going to talk about energy storage. But before I go into these three programs that are very important, I want to mention that in addition to supporting, let's say, under the windows, specific technologies, for example, to decarbonize renewables or hydrogen or energy storage, etc., or supporting the energy access agenda, we also have programs that are more cross-cutting, that are supporting the foundations for the energy transition. So we focused on supporting the development of energy markets, making sure that policy and regulation is in place. We focused on closing gender gaps, for example. We have a facility that's very focused on looking into how to design subsidies that are smart and well-targeted. So we have a number of different thematic areas that we combine to deliver customized solutions at the operational level, at the ground level, together with our partners, not only the World Bank and the World Bank Group, IFC and MIGA, but also with a number of other different stakeholders and actors that are supporting our clients and that are also supporting us with their knowledge. So we try to be very complementary to what's happening in the ground. We try to make sure that there is global cooperation and that there is a very clear view on how all together are trying to advance these two important objectives of accelerating the energy transition and, of course, supporting the energy poverty, the energy access agenda. So let me tell you a little bit about three programs that have been strongly supported by the UK. We are very proud of the results with these programs. The first one is the SRMI, Sustainable Risk Mitigation Facility. SRMI is an approach that we call an integrated approach that combines development and climate finance to support governments, attract private sector participation in investments in renewable energy. It's very focused on risk mitigation and is very focused on tailoring risk mitigation to scale of renewables. There are basically four areas that we look at. We look at strengthening the capacity of the government to design appropriate policy and regulation, especially energy pricing, and of course everything that has to do with renewables. We're also very focused on supporting our clients establish sound procurement. In renewables, this means competition and the design of auctions that have been quite successful in many markets to bring the price of renewables down. We are also very focused on supporting the development of critical infrastructure because, of course, transmission lines are important, and, of course, industrial parks, solar parks are also very important to attract the private sector. And as I said before, we are under this window tailoring risk mitigation to cover the residual financial risk. Now, under SRMI, we're not only supporting large-scale renewables, we are also supporting the energy access agenda, mini-grids and off-grid. Now, just to tell you a little bit about the results of the SRMI program, in just 3 years, the program has built a strong pipeline of about 25 projects, mostly in Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa and Asia, with the result of 4.6 gigawatts of wind and solar installed and 1 gigawatt hour of battery storage. So the SRMI really is an implementing entity or an implementing facility. And we are advancing very fast, and I'm very proud of the results. Now in Africa, we are supporting Mali, Central African Republic, Burkina Faso, Ethiopia, Zimbabwe, and many other countries. So it's one of the areas in which we are more active. Now, we're also supporting the coal transition. One of the things that we've been focusing lately is in South Africa. The coal transition program in ESMA provides support to countries along 3 pillars, which is developing governance structure, supporting technical assistance for people and communities so that they are not affected by the transition, and of course repurposing of mines and power plants. We just took a large project to the board that's focusing on phasing out coal and decommissioning coal and bringing renewables to the table. And finally, I have to talk a little bit about the energy storage partnership because it's also very important. We are supporting many countries with introducing different types of storage batteries, of course. But we are very proud of new energy storage test beds, for example, in South Africa and in Morocco, which are also helping as building blocks of this complex system of technologies that need to be put in place to deliver on the energy transition. So that's very quickly. I had 5 minutes, but I have a lot to say about ESMAP, so I'll be happy to talk to you after the session or during the session. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much, Gabriela, and you're right. I mean, there's so much to say about all of these programs today and this work because there's so much going on, but it's great to hear about that customized offer, those partnerships, but particularly building those partnerships with countries on the ground because that's what it's all about as well. So now let me turn to Holger Rothenbusch, who is Managing Director and Head of Infrastructure and Climate at British International Investment, who's going to say a little bit about progress in Africa on BII and commitment since COP26.
Thank you very much, and good morning, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. Very happy to be here, and thank you so much for having me on the panel. I just adjust the microphone. Well, BII is a British International Investment, which is the UK government-owned development finance institution. Until earlier this year, we were known as CDC, which may be a name that a few of you are more familiar with. And we've been investing in particular in Africa for over 74 years, so our 75th anniversary is coming up. At COP, we made a number of announcements, which are very much sort of part of our 5-year investment strategy that is starting this year and is running to 26, within which we are looking to be investing close to $4 billion in terms of climate finance. So one of the main and the first announcement that we made was to invest more than 30% of our capital over this time by way of climate finance. And this year I'm very happy to say that we are actually standing at 50%, and we have already committed $500 million in terms of climate finance, the majority of which in Africa. And we are looking to be closing the year closer to $700 to $800 million, which will be putting us well on track to achieve our overall objective and to be exceeding our stated target of 30%. I mean, some of the projects, just to highlight, South Africa, we've supported, I think, the only one project that has closed under the emergency renewable energy round in South Africa, which is a solar plus battery storage project in itself. It's a very innovative project, and it's the largest renewables plus storage project on the continent once it's built. So we're very excited about this. Minister Stewart had earlier referred to Globeleq, which is the biggest independent power developer on the continent, which is supporting a very significant number of projects, I mean close to 1.4 gigawatts of renewable energy in South Africa in the subsequent renewable energy round. And so we're going through the motions on this. We are, through our subsidiary Gridworks, focused sort of on the other end of the spectrum, which is focused on transmission and distribution and decentralized energy, where we are looking to hopefully close sometime soon the development of mini-grids in the northern DRC, which will be connecting up to 20,000 individuals to reliable and affordable power, which so far don't have access to this sort of energy. So really play the field from large-scale utilities in the bigger countries, which are supporting the energy transition in South Africa, to decentralized energy in very sort of challenging environments like upcountry in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. On South Africa, we've also announced that we are supporting the Just Energy Transition Program, which is obviously led by the UK. alongside our partners on the private sector development side. So we are coordinating efforts by the private sector development institutions and are investing in the sector. I mentioned a few projects already. And now, as many of you will know, the investment program has been announced by the South African authorities, and we are looking to support this across energy generation, but also transmission distribution, the conversion from obviously the coal repowering to transition this to renewable energy, as well as supporting the transition to e-mobility and investments in green hydrogen. So that's a very ambitious investment program, which we are very actively supporting. The third point I would want to mention is that collaboration, and I think we touched on this before, is very important. And there are a number of players that are coming onto the scene more recently. One of noteworthy ones is the Global Energy Alliance for People and Planet, which is supported by the Rockefeller Foundation, IKEA and Bezos. And I heard that the UK is working with the IKEA Foundation in another program. And so we are working with them in a number of our projects to be enhancing access to energy, clean energy that is, in remote areas. For example, in the DRC, they're coming to play with us, and we are looking at, for example, a climate tech investment fund where we are working with GAP as well. We want to increase our focus on adaptation resilience, which obviously at this COP is a very sort of key topic, so beyond the mitigation. So how can we support countries in their fight against climate change? So we have been one of the co-founders of the Adaptation Resilience Investor Collaborative, which has now 18 members, and actually was announced at this COP that we are now creating a secretariat, which is developing the collaboration further, which is geared to create investable opportunities for the private sector in adaptation and resilience, which is not so straightforward. And so there's a lot more work that needs to be done, and BII is very much leading the charge on this, and we are making direct investments, in particular in agriculture, around sort of climate tech and parametric insurance, for example. Yeah, and finally, we have expanded, we did say we want to, and we have expanded our investment and support in forestry, which obviously is an important area when we talk about adaptation resilience as well. And we have launched the Africa Investment Platform for Forestry, which is a $200 million investment program alongside an Asian forestry company, New Forest, together with Norfund and Finnfund, which are colleagues from the Nordics, to be investing in sustainable forestry in Africa, and we've made the first investment in Kenya already. And maybe just to highlight the collaboration with Zambia, given His Excellency on the panel, in the framework of the Green Growth Compact, we had the honor to be meeting with the delegation of Zambia at the last COP, and since then we have invested $50 million in a green SME financing facility through Zanaco, which is one of the commercial banks in Zambia, and we are currently developing a number of renewable energy projects in Zambia to be leading on to the themes that His Excellency had mentioned. So we've been very busy to follow up on our commitments, and we will continue to do so in the next year. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, and for kind of bringing out the different scales that needed there, from SMEs to huge, and actually you could have been talking about the breakthrough agenda as well, which we've been talking about a lot this week. So looking at how do we accelerate and speed up and make these solutions affordable and accessible for everyone across power, but also into hydrogen, into transport, and into kind of land use and forests as well. So thank you very much, Holger. And last but by no means least, I'd like to invite Brian Wambani to provide the private sector perspective as well on the partnerships and policy needed to unlock that investment we've all been talking about for a just energy transition in Africa. Brian is Investment Director at CAMCO, which is a specialist climate and impact fund, and CAMCO manages the UK-funded Renewable Energy Performance Platform, which we also call REP. And I'm not meant to have favourite projects that we support, but I'll let you hear about REP a bit more and you can make your own mind up. Brian, thank you.
Yep. No, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us this afternoon. COP27 is about implementation. That's the narrative. And implementation is essentially getting stuff done. Renewable Energy Performance Platform, managed by CAMCO, which, as you mentioned, is a multi-platform climate and impact fund manager, gets stuff done. Now, REP, as a climate and impact fund manager, is focused on the SDGs, but in this case, we're speaking about 3 of them in particular: SDG 7, access to clean energy; SDG 13, climate action; and SDG 17, partnerships. So truly, we are the nexus between climate and economic development, climate finance and economic development, in addition to meeting our climate goals. Now, I know a lot of people want to hear numbers, and I'll just share a few. The Renewable Energy Performance Platform, as mentioned by the Right Honorable Minister, we've created about 8,700 jobs have been created to date since its inception. About 1,700 of these jobs held by women. And in terms of mobilizing finance, with the initial 88 million pounds, this has helped to mobilize over 300 million pounds from third parties. In this light, we are also looking to continue in this work with our REP 2, and there we'd hope to raise about 1.5 billion from third parties, third-party financiers. So it's not about empty rhetoric. These are actually facts. This is what's happening on the ground. This is implementation, and this is what REP is doing. That being said, this has not been without challenges. The 3 challenges that we look, to find solutions to, largely been small ticket sizes. A lot of funders do not fancy getting into projects where the ticket sizes are small. There are high project risks, particularly around policy, and again, a decentralized developer network. So finding solutions to these challenges has not been easy, but we've been able to do it through partnerships. Through partnerships, we've been able to deliver in terms of partnerships with governments. We have been, through our transactions, we have been able to speak to governments, and also governments. What's interesting here is governments that would not necessarily be tied to the UK. So, by doing transactions across sub-Saharan Africa, by doing transactions in countries such as Madagascar, where, Burundi, where the UK hasn't had a strong presence, we have been able to unlock our partnerships with governments, be it speaking to them about how to set up their power purchase agreements. So that has just catalyzed a whole other discussion, which has been very relevant to delivery of our goals. We've been able to foster a local developer environment through listening to local developers, through listening to local communities. We have been able to do this by providing technical assistance programs. REP has been able to achieve this. And thirdly, we've been able to crowd in financiers. This has been largely through being able to de-risk by going in first where other people were not able to go. We've been able to foster partnerships with the private sector. So all in all, partnerships are important, and I think we believe that REP has been at the forefront of it. CAMCO, as the manager, has been at the forefront of this, and we would like for this to continue. We would encourage other entities, other governments to come on board. There is a platform. Make use of this platform, and it would be of absolute help that everyone comes in and takes part in what is already working, and just help it grow to greater heights. Thank you. Yeah.
Well, thank you. And what better way to kind of set out what you do in terms of just getting stuff done and finding solutions to challenges and really focusing on that implementation on the ground. That's why we're all here. Now, I do have a couple of minutes, so what I might do is see if there's maybe 2 questions from the audience. Please, if you're going to ask a question, keep it really short, and then we'll gather 2 in, and then we'll come to the panel to kind of any further reflections or to answer those as well. And if there aren't any, that's fine too. 2 stunned, and you're all in agreement. Okay. I mean, I think probably then what we're all agreeing is that partnerships... Oh, sorry, didn't spot you there.
Oh, thank you so much. My name's Twambo Mtinta. I'm Member of Parliament in Zambia. I'm excited to have my minister also on the panel there. My question goes to the lady who's wearing white. I didn't get your name, I'm sorry. You did mention that your organization is also looking at the legislative frameworks for supporting legislative frameworks in most of these African countries. You might be aware that for Zambia, we just had the first Ministry of Green Economy as a demonstration that we are promoting a green economy. Now, in your assessment from the African point of view, in most of the governments, do you think their legal frameworks, they also speak to the desire to a just transition towards enabling are the African government's legislative frameworks speaking to your aspirations? Basically, that's what the question is. Thank you.
Great. Are there any others in the room? Last chance. Okay, one in the far side.
Afternoon, Ian Meikle from Innovate UK. Great panel, thank you. On the theme of partnership and action, just wondering what the panel members take away from today in terms of partnering with each other of what you've learned today.
Great. So a kind of a question to anyone who wants to pick that up on partnerships and how we're going to work together. Gabriella, you got a fairly technical, well, a question directly to you, and I'm sure you might want to follow up afterwards on some of that, and then maybe we'll come quickly down the line for everyone on any final reflections on making these partnerships work.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for the question over there. I don't know if you can hear me well. Yes? Okay. Well, the question on what legal frameworks and regulations you need to advance the energy transition, right? And you are asking this question as a parliamentarian. And I think it's a complex question because the reality is that you need a combination of measures that are relevant to your system to be able to deliver on the transition. And the transition means different things for different countries. I believe that the energy transition, for example, coal countries means decommissioning coal. For other countries, it means to introducing resilience and adaptation to climate change and to achieving universal access of energy. So there are a number of things that we are doing at the World Bank and also in ESMAP. One of the things that we are starting to benchmark policy and regulation across the world in more than 140 countries to look into how countries are progressing on policy and regulation against a theoretical best practice frontier. So if you go to these documents, and I will talk to you after the session and point you at the resources, you can find your country, Zambia, ranked in this index that we have. It's called Regulatory Indicators for Sustainable Energy. And we also have now published a new brand index called Global Electricity Index. If you look at that, you'll see probably 80 different indicators at what is needed to deliver on the energy transition. First, the core regulation, tariff regulation, etc., but also for renewables, energy efficiency, green hydrogen, energy access. You'll find a very important collection of information for you.
Excellent, thank you. I know that was a big question. And maybe 30 seconds for each of my fantastic panel here as well, just to say, what do you take from this? What's the one thing you want us to all do on partnerships for a just transition?
Yeah, I think it goes without saying that partnerships are important. I think what we need to see more action from not only the UK government, but also from other governments in the West. So the UK has shown tremendous leadership, we think, and vision, especially, for example, in setting up REP. But we think it would also be important that other governments follow on that. Yeah.
Thank you. Minister.
Thank you. Partnerships. For us, we've also created what we are calling a public-private dialogue forum. This is encouraging partnerships. We are trying to break all barriers to partnerships. We are going as far as legislating. There's new laws, there's new institutional frameworks. So when you come to Zambia, we sit on a committee of ministers, including the private sector, to see how to de-risk your investments, to see how to partner with yourselves. so that there's a mutually beneficial partnership. So we are ready for you. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. And well, maybe just leading on from there, I mean, I sometimes find in particular in settings like this, the focus is very much on collaboration of international institutions and international investors and so forth. But I mean, as the Excellency has just mentioned, it is critically important that we are very much focused on the partnership with countries in Africa in particular, so that we recognize the needs and also the demands and the possibilities and the constraints that are existing in those countries, and don't come with preconceived models that we believe might be suitable for all, rather than to really make them applicable in country. And that, I think, was a very good experience that we had in South Africa, as the Just Energy Transition investment program had been designed very much in collaboration with the South African authorities. And I think that will be a very important theme that other countries should be pursuing, and certainly that's what we are very much focused on.
Well, thank you so much, everyone here. A huge thank you to my panel. I mean, I think actually it's been such an uplifting session on actually some really practical things which are happening that we can do together, and really coming back to that word implementation as well. We know that this transition has got to be just, or it's not going to work. It's got to be inclusive. It's got to be now, and we've got to do it together. And I might just finish on the Minister's words here as well. We are ready for you, world. We need to do this together. Thank you very much. Thank you.